this is Warhawk Beyond 2040, and welcome to another edition of the Flash Season 8 review series. And today I am going to be talking about Episode 5, Armageddon Part 5, which is part of a 5 parts crossover event of the same name, which I have just finished watching. And these 5 parts have been absolutely fantastic. Not a single bad one, and in my opinion, some of the show's best writing and storytelling, and definitely a huge step up from season 7, which, in my opinion, was not the show's finest hour. I would put season 7 as probably the weakest of 8 seasons, but it still had some good episodes. But with season 8, definitely a return to classic form, and I'm definitely feeling some of the old magic is coming back in the show, and it definitely felt like the Flash that I know and love, and certainly the show that I've been watching for so many years. So, what we've seen in this 5 parts crossover event is we've seen a number of different heroes from the Arrowverse appear in episodes to lend their help to Barry Allen. So, this definitely had a brave and the bold feel to it. So, part one featured Ray Palmer, aka The Atom, played superbly as always by Brandon Routh. Part two saw Alex Danvers from Supergirl lend her support. Part three saw the return of Black Lightning, played amazing as always by Cress Williams. Part four saw Batwoman, aka Ryan Wilder, even though she was only in a cameo sort of role, but it was cool to see Javicia Leslie actually show up on a different show, so she's definitely going to start making her rounds in the Arrowverse in the near future, I think. And in part five, we saw the return of Mia Smoke, aka the new Green Arrow. Now, this is the first time that we have actually seen Mia Smoke since Arrow ended, and of course, as we all know, we sadly didn't get the spin off series that was promised to us, which was Green Arrow and the Canaries. So, a lot of storytelling in that backdoor pilot was left mostly unresolved. So, some of that was referenced in this episode, but once again, nothing got resolved or nothing even got mentioned barely. So, which is a real shame, really, because I was hoping that if they're not going to get the Green Arrow and the Canaries spin off series, I would have thought they would have at least resolved that little story that was done in Arrow season 8, but sadly, that's never happened. And Mia Smoke and Barry Allen never got to really work together that much, so I kind of felt like something as special as Mia Smoke's appearance in The Flash. I don't think this was handled very well. I think she could have had a much bigger role, but what can you do, really? But it was good to see her back, don't get me wrong, but I just kind of feel her appearance, which, if it's going to be a one time deal, was a little bit wasted. That's probably my only takeaway from this episode, in my opinion, and certainly the only takeaway I can think of in this 5 parts crossover event. I would probably say the best team up in this 5 parter was definitely Barry Allen and Ray Palmer. I thought that was a lot of fun. Props to Brandon Wolf for putting that over. And I would probably say that the best part of the 5 parts was definitely part four, where Eobard Thawne created his own reverse Flashpoint, where he was the Flash and Barry Allen was the reverse Flash. So I was really impressed with that, and definitely had the feel of Elseworlds. And as I said in the previous edition, that episode should have been an Elseworlds. I mean, that's exactly what Elseworlds should have been like, not some Freaky Friday scenario with Oliver and Barry, which was still a lot of fun. But if you're going to do an Elseworlds, do it properly. And I think that one was definitely the closest to an Elseworlds. So I'm going to give a quick recap of everything that's happened so far, and then we're just going to get straight into talking about the final part of the 5 parts crossover event. So basically, what's happened is Despero has come from the future and has warned everyone that Barry is going to cause Armageddon, aka the end of the world. And Barry has 7 days to prove him that he's not going to do that. And of course, we learn later on that Joe West has apparently died, which we'll get into that in a moment. And Despero warns that a great tragedy will cause Barry to not only crack but lose his mind as well. And then, after going back to the future in 2031, Barry finally learns the shocking truth that Eobard Thawne has been behind the entire thing, and he has created his own reverse flashpoint where he has scheduled to marry Iris West, and all of his friends and allies have turned against him. And he also got some very surprising help from Damien Dark. So that's everything that's happened so far. So now that the timeline has more or less been restored, Eobard Thawne has now got one final trick up his sleeve to make Barry's life a living hell. As they always say, you can't keep a good villain down. So we now come to Armageddon Part 5, and as I said, this was a good fitting way to end this crossover event. What happened to Eobard Thawne was very interesting, certainly a different route to what I was expecting. And this definitely leaves a lot of questions raised. What happens to him now? Because we all know Eobard Thawne is very smart and he'll find another way to come back. So, with the timeline more or less restored, the question is, where do we go from here? So, with that all said, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 5, Armageddon, part 5. So, this episode picks up where we left off at the end of part 4, where we see Joe's on the phone with Barry, and Barry races over to the West House to hug him. Barry fills Joe in what has happened and how Thawne stole his life and messed with the timeline and creating a reverse flashpoint, which resulted in Joe's apparent death. Joe reassures him that he's here now and he's not going anywhere. They are soon interrupted by the appearance of Damien Dark, and it turns out that Damien Dark may have temporarily been drawn to 2021 because he was connected to the time stone Barry used to set things right. He doesn't know how long he has, but he just wants to see his daughter Nora. Meanwhile, we see the Reverse Flash shows up at the CCPD, antagonizing them, but says he's not ready to die yet. At Star Labs, Barry tries to explain the weird timeline to Team Flash, including showing Chester the technology that his future self created that ultimately saved the timeline. They get a news alert, though, that Thawne is at CCPD. Thawne is trying to draw out the Flash, but that's not who he gets. Instead, he gets Mia Smoke, aka Green Arrow. She wants to know where William is, but Thawne doesn't tell her and then starts to experience temporal fade. Thawne goes to kill Mia, but the Flash intervenes and saves her. Thawne then asks Barry to help save him from being wiped out of existence. Back at Star Labs, Mia is brought up to speed and she explains that she tracked Thawne by mistake, as she was actually tracking someone else. It turns out that when Barry reversed Thawne's changes, he also set in motion for Thawne to be erased for good. Mia says they're making a big mistake even considering letting Thawne live. Iris goes to talk to her. Mia tells her she's there to find William as he has been missing. Now, for those of you who are not sure what's going on here, at the end of season 8 of Arrow, in the Green Arrow and the Canaries episode, William was kidnapped and taken by a group of people, and we learn that Mia has been looking for William for over 2 years, and that she found temporal energy at the crime scene, which is what led to her being here. So that is probably the most we ever get from that moment. We learn that all she has is the Queen family hosen. Iris asks if she's asked Felicity for help, but Mia says her mother wouldn't understand what she's done to get as far as she has. Iris tells her that her father eventually learned that killing wasn't exactly the answer, and it ended up ruining his own life. Mia thinks Iris needs to step up and kill Thawne. Hmm. Caitlin checks on Thawne and he tries to get into her head by reminding her of where she was 8 years ago with Ronnie, the night that the particle accelerator exploded. Thawne tells her that she's stuck rather than getting on with her life. Caitlin doesn't exactly take the bait and tells him that death is a part of life and that she can't outrun what is coming for him. She also tells Thawne that she hates him and that she's not the person who is going to save him. Caitlin then goes and tells Barry they need to let Fawn die. Wow, a bit dark here. Barry goes to speak with Fawn. He wants to know why Fawn created a reverse flashpoint and tries to understand why destroying his life has been such a big deal to him. Barry wants to know what did he do to Fawn, and Fawn explains to him that in 200 years from now, they will meet for the first time. Fawn gets speed, and he is about to present himself to the world, but the Flash shows up, pursuing a case, and dazzles the crowd, and saves him before he can. Fawn also goes on to explain that he felt humiliated with Barry, who had been his hero, so Fawn's reaction was to get faster and destroy Barry. He also admits that if Barry saves him, Fawn is just going to continue to look for new ways to kill him. Now, this would have been a good opportunity to do an Eobard Fawn origin story because we never really got that. We was been promised that before, but we just never got it. And again, another missed opportunity from the CW. We should have got a Reverse Flash origin episode. I think we would have liked to have seen that. I think Despero shows up later and tells him that Barry needs to let Fawn die because if Barry doesn't, there's no way to ensure Armageddon is really prevented. Despero also says that he can't kill him because there's no way to ensure Fawn is gone for good. They have to let him die. Caitlin, Barry, and Iris are now on the side of letting Fawn die, but Chester and Allegra don't agree. Iris tells them that they don't get a say because they're new kids. Cecile thinks they should consider this moment, but Joe shows up and tells Barry and Iris they need to talk. Joe is not happy with the idea they're just going to let Fawn die. He tells them they are obligated to help him because that's what heroes do. Joe admits that I want him dead too, but we don't get to decide that. We have to protect everyone, not just the good people, but everyone, because that's what heroes do. Joe gets mad and tells them that they always have a choice, it turns out. Barry has already figured out a way to save Fawn by taking away his speed for good. With the decision set and everybody on board, Despero decides to take things in his own hand and he controls Mia. The plan to save Fawn is straightforward. Take away his speed and Argos will take him into custody. He threatens the Flash and they both disappear. Despero tells them that they're making a huge mistake because Fawn can recover his powers. The team goes to protect Fawn, but they are stopped by Mia. The Flash tells Despero that he's never been a hero and calls Despero out for lying about his own backstory. Turns out that Despero was the despot in his own origin story. Now he's been wrong this entire time. Despero is really the villain. They fight, and at Star Labs, Mia goes after the rest of Team Flash, shooting Caitlin in the leg with an arrow and preparing to kill Iris while Barry and Despero continue to fight on the streets of Central City. Iris and Cecile work on talking Mia down and breaking Despero's connection to her. They're successful, and Mia is restored back to normal. Barry ends up at Star Labs after Despero says he is going to be the hero the world needs. He's planning to destroy the whole city just to kill Fawn. Team Flash must work fast to take away Fawn's speed as time is running out. They decide to use the PED from the future to deal with the Flame of Pattaya by giving Flash his signature gold boots. Finally! Comic book accuracy at last! The boots allow the Flash to disperse the flame, defeating Despero by disconnecting his connection to it. Despero vows they will pay and disappears. With just a few seconds remaining, Barry races back to Star Labs. He hits Fawn with massive amounts of energy and disconnects him from his speed, saving his life but leaving him completely speedless. Fawn, however, says his speed was his life, and all Barry has done is left him in hell, thus ruining his life for good. Wow. Awesome stuff here. The day saved, Team Flash celebrates along with Mia, but Damien Dark shows up. Mia goes to kill him but doesn't when Damien seems ready to accept his fate, and he's surprised that he's still alive anyway. Damien honestly isn't sure how he's still alive. Iris talks with Mia and gives her a clue about William. Turns out she found a lead on the symbols on the Chosen, and Mia decides she's going to see her mother after all, having chosen to be a hero. Iris invites her to visit more often while she's spending time in 2021. Chester, at Frost's encouraging, goes to try and flirt with Allegra. Joe goes to talk to Damien, father to father, and Joe thanks him for helping Barry. Damien still doesn't know why he's still there, and Joe suggests that maybe he's just got a little bit more work to do. He gives Joe the time stone and disappears. It's confusing for Damien, but he's ended up where he finds Nora. They have a brief reunion, and he goes to tell her how much he loves her one more time. When it's all over, we see Nora Dark appears in a bar in Damien's place. Not sure what's happened, but Barry understands. The timeline is officially fixed now. Nora is back alive and well, thanks to her father, Damien. Joe comforts her and takes her aside to tell her the story of what's happened. And as we come to the end of this episode, we see Barry make a toast to the team, and at the CCPD, a photo on the wall from 2014 changes to include Bart and Nora Allen in the background. And that's how we end Armageddon Part 5, and that officially wraps up my review. Overall, I thought all 5 parts were excellent. The idea of Eobard Thawne finally losing his speed is an interesting one, so it'll be very cool to see how they will bring him back to getting his speed. And also, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed all 5 parts. Part 4 still wins by a landslide, but this was still very good. Part 5 was really good, although I do think Mia Smoke's appearance in this part was kind of wasted because I kind of felt that she could have done a little bit more, but it was still cool to see her. So I would say the best team up of this 5 parts goes to the Atom, and also best episode part overall goes to part 4, which I thought was really, really good. And I'm really impressed that we finally have gotten comic book accuracy suits. Flash has finally got the golden boots. Reverse Flash has got the classic full yellow suit and red boots. So to me, that's a big win all round as a DC fan. Really pleased to see that. So now that 5 parts of the Armageddon crossover events are finished, I'm really looking forward to seeing where season 8 goes from here, because I don't know how they're going to top this, because this has been some of the show's best work in my opinion, and as I mentioned at the beginning, a huge step up from season 7. So I'm really looking forward to see where we go from here. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What did you think of Armageddon Part 5? Did you enjoy it? What was your thoughts on Mia Smoke's role in this one? Do you think she could have had a bigger one? And also, do you think her role was kind of a bit wasted here? And also, do you think we should have gotten a fitting conclusion to what happened at the end of the Green Arrow and the Canaries episode? And also, what's your thoughts on Eobard Thawne finally losing his speed? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Flash Season 8 review series, where I am going to be talking about Episode 6. So that should be a really good one. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And as always, thanks for listening.